Hey, what's up, guys? This is Tim. It's my first video on here. I formerly operated under the screen name AP Lang forever. Um, just did some watching, some debating via comment, sort of stuff. Never actually made a video. So I decided to make a new channel because my former channel's name was severely outdated, had to do with something from high school. No, I'm a sophomore in college now. I figured it was, time to grow out of that name. Tell a little bit about myself. I am a second year economics student out here in Southern California. Aspirations for law. I am a conservative. I'm a Christian. I know that's going to cause all sort of judgments on your part, on a lot of people's parts, when they hear that, you're a conservative Christian, you must be one of those bigoted, sort of gun-toting, ignorant, hillbilly kind of type. But, quite the contraire. And, I will discuss that incorrect notion of conservatism eventually. I find myself pretty open-minded about many things, but definitely not all things. And with that principle, I'm going to kind of go into just a little tangent I wanted to record on moral relativism, and why it's dangerous. Now, a lot of people would equate moral relativism to open-mindedness. They would say, I'm a moral relativist because I realize that my paradigm is different from your paradigm, and our conflicting worldviews create a phenomena in which both of us can be correct in our own minds, and thus universal truth and universal right and wrong are impossible to derive. Now, this idea on the surface is, it sounds nice, it sounds progressive, it sounds, intelligent, philosophical, correct, all of these things. But the fact of the matter is that it is a dangerous point of view. It's a dangerous mindset to have, because what you essentially do when you are a moral relativist, and let's say our country is trending towards moral relativism, but let's say we were an entirely moral relativist society, what that would do is it would create a scenario in which any offense, really any offense, could be condoned through reasoning. Murder could be condoned because of that moral relativity, because the person who committed that act was doing so out of their own paradigm, their own worldview, of which we cannot judge. And this idea that there is no absolute right and wrong really fuels that fire. And, that's just the surface of moral relativism, but that's the premise of what it does. And I think that people like to attack the sort of Christian belief that absolute right and wrong exist, and that they are in existence because of God. People like to attack that view as closed-minded, as sort of high and mighty, kind of pompous in a way. But I think if you really peel back the layers and examine that belief, there really isn't much errant in it. There is obviously absolute right and wrong. I think you are freaking kidding yourself if you think that there are not certain activities that are inherently wrong, and there are certain activities that are inherently right. For example, if I see a small child in the street and I go up to that small child and I cause harm, cause violence on that small child for no reason, pretty much for any reason, it's a small child for that matter, but if I were to do that unprovoked, that would be inherently absolutely wrong. Now, where do we get that view from is the big question I want to ask you, especially to the atheist community out there. That universal truth that that particular action would be wrong, where do we get that? If we are all separate creatures with our own worldviews and paradigms, and we are all the result of chemical reactions and things like that, and we respond to certain stimuli in our environment, and we act based on our own self-interest, then why would pretty much all of us share that inherent belief that the particular action of harming another is inherently wrong? And, that's a question I'd like answered, because I think people like to dismiss that question. They like to say, well, it comes from the human mind, which is logical and has emotions and things like that. But that doesn't really answer the question, because the human mind is part of this particular environment that we live in. It is part of us and humans, and we are part of the environment that we live in. And so it would be sort of outlandish to claim that we would all hold a universal belief if there was nothing sort of connecting all of us, if you know what I mean. Now, there are certain issues of which we all disagree. There is no universal truth on certain matters. For example, which is better, Coke or Pepsi? There is no universal truth to that. There is opinions. There is, preferences for something like that. But for the case which I brought up about harming a child for no reason, that would be inherently wrong to pretty much every person I know. And my question would be why? And really, my argument for that is that to say that our idea of inherent right and wrong comes from God is not really that far of a stretch, because the inherent idea would have to come from somebody or something out of the equation. For example, when a baseball game is going on, there's an umpire. The umpire is not in the situation. He is not playing for an interest. He is not on either particular team. He is there to dictate how the game is played and is conducted. Now, would it be fair for sort of just one of the players on the teams to be the judge of right and wrong amidst the game, to call strikes and balls? No, it would not be fair, because that person would have a self-serving interest in the matter. And that is why the idea that sort of objective right and wrong comes from God is not outlandish, because just logically speaking, a God, if one existed, would exist outside of the common laws which govern its creation. So, those are just some questions to kind of stimulate you. look forward to your responses. One thing I'm not going to do is regulate comments or disable ratings or anything like that. Um, I know how vote botting goes, you know, on the YouTube community. I know typically it's sad, but if a Christian comes across an atheist video or a liberal comes across a conservative's video, it usually will rate them a 1 star without even watching it, and vice versa. Or if a conservative comes across a fellow conservative's video, or if a atheist comes across a fellow atheist video, they'll rate it 5 stars without even watching it. You know, that's the way it goes, and it sort of averages out, you know. But, you know, we'll see where it goes. Thanks a lot. God bless. Keep it real.